Next, we have Mr. Lakshan Soisa on securing web-facing applications. Lakshan today works as the Manager Operations for Sri Lanka CERT. Prior to joining Sri Lanka CERT, he worked in the telecom industry for 6 years. Today, his research interests are on network security and admin security. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Lakshan Soisa on securing web-facing applications.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think I may have chosen a very difficult topic to talk about after lunch. I hope I'll keep it interesting enough to keep you awake. And I also need to be brutally upfront with you. I am not a developer by way of training, but I feel it is very, very important that we talk about applications when it comes to the internet, because granted we have a lot of bandwidth available thanks to new infrastructure projects that are going on, but what's the point of having all these resources if we don't have the applications to make use of it? And all evidence tells us that there are going to be thousands and thousands of applications coming our way now and in the future. So without any further delay, let me begin. First of all, what is a web application? I've gone through several definitions, try to get through to the most relevant one I feel is that it's an application that resides on a server and can be accessed over a network by a thin client, typically using a web browser. The web applications have been around for a long time, since the late 80s, and they have evolved. So if you look at, for example, your webmail, Yahoo Mail or Gmail, or eBay, which does online auction, or wikis like Wikipedia or WikiLeaks, and even online collaboration platforms like WebEx WebOffice or Microsoft Office Live, and even microblogging sites like Twitter. So thanks to concepts like Web 2.0, now we are not just users of the application, we are also contributors to generating data on applications. So Twitter and Facebook are very good examples of this, where the user community actually drives the content on those applications. So why are web applications becoming popular? I think one of the main reasons is that they can be very, very quickly deployed. You don't have to install client software through hundreds of thousands of hosts. User, provided there's compatibility, can easily access a web application through their platform, whatever that may be. It can be your laptop, your desktop, your mobile, your iPad. So as he said, like the warrior, you can use whatever weapon you want to access that application. And you can access it from anywhere. So you're no longer tied to your desk or to your office, which may be a problem for some of us, but it can actually be a good productivity tool. So what are the common vulnerabilities that face web applications? I have listed a few of the applications that we commonly come across. I'll go through them one by one. The first, I think the most common one is SQL injection, because we tend to store user data in databases, and these databases are typically interrogated using a structured query language or SQL queries. And if a database isn't properly configured, and if you don't do proper input validation, you could be vulnerable for SQL injection attacks. So if a SQL injection attack is carried out successfully, the following can happen. You can log into an application without having a valid use ID. You can query a database without the proper authorization and gain access to information that you're not privy to. And given the right query string, you can even dump an entire database out, which is a huge breach of data, which the previous speaker mentioned, like huge credit card theft or user identity, like email addresses can be stolen. And you can access other databases by gaining trust with the web app itself. So there's a very common, sorry, I don't seem to have a pointer. Yeah, so one very common string that you use is the or 1 equals 1. So if you look at the string in red, select from the table employee where employee ID equals 001 or 1 equals 1. As we all know, 1 equals 1 is always true. So what you do is you force the database to be dumped out. And in addition to entering this in a search box, you can also enter it in the address bar of your browser. Cross-site scripting is actually the second common vulnerability. It is also something that can be used, for example, phishing mails when they come in. They can be used to direct the user to a vulnerable website. And then when you visit that website, there'll be a script executed on your browser, and any number of things can happen there. One of the common things is execution of malicious software, malicious scripts on your browser. Buffer overflow is basically an architectural fault. What happens is when we create an application, we create a memory buffer, and to which we store variables that are generated when you are executing the application. Now, if you don't properly bound the memory space that you allocate for an application, a buffer data can be overwritten across the buffer to another memory buffer. And the result of this is you can actually point your machine, your processor, to execute an application in a different memory space. So if you happen to have some malicious code with the execution pointer starting at that point in the memory space, you can cause that computer to execute a totally different piece of code to what you intended. So that's the basic premise of buffer overflow. And it can be quite dangerous. It can lead to damaging a user's file, corrupting it with other data. You can change data, change records, for example. You can disclose confidential information, and very dangerously, the most dangerous thing is you can execute a malicious application in this method. And another common vulnerability is data interception. It happens in several ways. The example I have chosen is basically a cookie where the user credentials are being passed, and someone is able to sniff that cookie and basically alter the data in that cookie and hijack the session. So clearly the problem here is that the data is in a clear form. It is easy for anyone to read using a sniffer. So there are some good practices which we can follow when developing applications to help prevent, to a large extent, this kind of incident from occurring. The first is input validation, of course. It's very important when you're trying to prevent SQL injection or input validation. The key principle behind this is you don't trust anything that the user inputs. In fact, one of the key things is you need to use the hexadecimal characters wherever possible. This is largely to help prevent direct traversal. You need to use whitelists or blacklists to reject statements or phrases which are not expected or acceptable within the framework of your application. And you need to sanitize the input. You need to make sure only acceptable characters are passed back onto the web application. If there is no, for example, space acceptable within an input, you do not need to pass that on to the application. So this is the way that malicious scripts can also be passed on to a browser, and it can be corrupted. And obviously, you do validation on data types as well. So you don't expect numbers to be present in a name field, and you get what I'm saying. So you don't get 1, 2, 3 if someone expects your name. Authentication is another way of making sure only those who need to gain access to a particular site, a particular resource, are able to do so. So what we suggest is partition a site to anonymous, identified, and authenticated. An authenticated user is trusted, and can gain access to the most available, most sensitive data. An identified user is less trusted, and an anonymous user is the least trusted, so has less access to sensitive data. Access to less sensitive data. Use strong passwords. Use an expiration period on the password, because sooner or later password can be cracked. And have the facility to disable accounts. And do not store authentication credentials in the clear. Always use a hash, a one-way hash. Common hashes are SHA-1, Secure Hashing Algorithm 1, or Message Digest 5. Right now we're on SHA-2. So you need to use a SHA to securely store, a hash to securely store passwords and other sensitive data on your application. Encrypt communication channels so that no one can easily sniff out your authentication credentials. This can be done through SSL or now TLS, transaction layer security. And forms, authentication should be passed only over a secure page. I don't know how many of you would have noticed in the last ICC Cricket World Cup, if you try to buy tickets on a particular site, you would have noticed that it was not a secure page. And there was one site actually. And so refrain from buying the ticket. Authorization, you need to make sure, in a nutshell, that a person in their role only gets enough access to resources that they need to do the job. So for example, the administrator only needs to gain, will need to gain access to far more resources than a user would when they log into a member area. So you need to make sure that you have implemented an authorization system that compartmentalizes users and the resources that they have access to. And you need to make sure that your application is configured properly. Not only the application, but also the system on which it resides. So when we actually do security testing, we make sure that we check the configuration of the operating system, the web server, and all the subsequent layers that the application rests on. Because all it takes is to compromise the underlying system, and you can easily conduct a denial of service. So your application may be 100% secure, but we crash the system underneath. So you need to look at your application and its hosting environment as a vertical.